Pastor, for open up in prayer. Let me set up two ground rules that we have in C.E.E.L. And I have a process that I don't waver from. First of all, I need all phones on mute. Keep all talking and applauding and cheering. No, because everything that you say is gonna pick up and go on YouTube. Again, my name is Damita Chatman. I'm the C.E.E.L president. Let me say this. I don't care if we don't pack the church out, because I know who's gonna watch it live. And once it go live, it's three audiences: the ones at the church, the ones watching it live, and the ones gonna watch it later on all the platforms, YouTube and everything. As long as my guest is here, that's all that matters with me, my guest. This is my guest tonight, so I want everybody to treat my guests like you would treat your parents, with respect. I want to thank Mr. Rob Pitts. I want to thank Ms. Moira, and I want to thank Mr. Marvin Arrington for coming. Again, I'm going to turn it over to the moderator, and this is my moderator, Beverly Rice. She joined the team. I have more moderators, but she's going to moderate this one tonight. Again, I want to thank you guys for coming. We do have questions. Nobody has the questions but me and the moderator. And so I have decided not to take no questions from the floor, because I don't want people to target a certain candidate. Like I say, I'm always gonna do it in decent and order. And so I gave her the questions this afternoon. So again, I'm gonna turn it over to Mrs. Rice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chatman, and good evening to all of you, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for tonight's election forum, where we will be enlightened by the candidates for the Fulton County Commissioner Chair. My name is Beverly Rice, and I will serve as your moderator for this evening. Our goal this evening is to provide a respectful, informative space where candidates can share their perspectives and where our community can learn more about the issues, about the issues that matter most. This forum is designed to ensure fairness and equal opportunity for all participants. Each candidate will be given the same amount of time to respond to questions, and we ask that everyone adhere to the guidelines provided. With that in mind, we ask that our audience refrain from applauding and making any unnecessary comments or sounds. We expect a civil and respectful exchange, free from personal attacks, interruptions, or inappropriate language. If a candidate mentions another candidate by name or makes a direct claim about them, the referenced candidate will be offered a 30-second rebuttal. Questions tonight will focus on topics of importance to our community. Our aim is to help voters better understand where each candidate stands so they can make informed decisions. We also ask our audience to remain respectful throughout the event. Your engagement is important, and we appreciate your role in supporting a constructive dialogue. Thank you again for sharing with us your gift of time and for your commitment to civic engagement. Candidates will answer questions in rotation. Let's begin. At this time, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a brief introduction. Mr. Arrington, we will start with you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marvin Arrington Jr. I'm a native of Atlanta, a graduate of Frederick Douglass High School, a graduate of the University of Virginia, and a graduate of Emory University School of Law, where I served as Chief Justice of the Honor Court. I've also been a practicing attorney for the last 30 years, and I'm proud and had the privilege to serve the residents of Fulton County as Fulton County Commissioner for the last 12 years. During my term, there's been a lot of things that I'm proud of. Most importantly, I'm proud of bringing pre-arrest diversion to Fulton County. This is a program where people are diverted prior to being arrested. And so it works out very well. We've been able to reduce the jail population by over 1,000 people that have been diverted through the pre-arrest diversion program. So I'm very happy about that. I also created the Veterans Empowerment Task Force and secured $1 million a year for veterans in Fulton County. So very proud of that and prioritizing our veterans. I also created the Reparations Task Force, and I'm very proud about that as well. I was able to secure $250,000 for a study for the Reparations Task Force, and they just produced a 660-page volume. Additionally, I'm the only certified county commissioner in this race. That means that I've received over 150 hours of continuing education credit for the University of Georgia and the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. As an attorney, I'm accustomed to receiving continuing education hours. We have to get 12 a year. And so I want to make sure that I learn best practices. So I make sure to attend and be involved in the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. Thank you.
Ms. Hybrid.
Good evening. Okay, good evening. Thank you so much. And thank you for hosting us tonight for this debate. I'm running for chair of the Fulton County Commission because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that is exactly what Fulton County has been experiencing. For the past 12 to 20 years, we've seen the same leadership, the same patterns, and the same unresolved problems. It's time for new leadership, new ideas, and real actionable steps to address our crisis areas. I'm a mother of 6, a grandmother of 2, a Spelman College graduate, an attorney, a law professor, and I've proudly called Fulton County home for more than 30 years. And sometimes it takes someone like me, a leader who's built for the moment, to come in, clean house, and demand change. Because you do not deserve to see the same leadership year after year and still struggle with issues like access to healthcare, a humanitarian crisis in our jail, underfunded courts that delay justice, and a lack of transparency in how your $1 billion of taxpayer money is spent. I'm not here for ribbon cuttings, galas, or access to VIP suites. I'm here to serve, to publicly educate, and to deliver the results that the people of Fulton County, especially on the South Side, have been waiting for far too long. Fulton County needs leadership that tells the truth, does the work, and fixes the problems before they get worse and certainly more expensive. This race is not about a lack of respect for elders or if you went to high school with someone. It is about whether Fulton County will keep giving people more of the same or whether we are finally going to meet this moment with urgency, discipline, and accountability. Right now, too many of our biggest problems have been allowed to grow for decades because leadership reacted late, avoided hard choices, or pretended delay was the same thing as stability.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Pastor, thank you. Chatman, thank you also. I'm Rob Pitts. I'm the current chair of the Board of Commissioners of Fulton County. Prior to becoming chair some 7 or 8 years ago, I served as a member of the Board of Commissioners. Prior to that, I served as president of the Atlanta City Council. And prior to that, I was a member of the Atlanta City Council. Now, in my opinion, we live in the largest county in the state of Georgia, one of the greatest counties in the United States of America. Some don't think so. I think that Fulton County is a great county. But in spite of that, we've had our challenges through the years. And under my leadership, we've come through those challenges with flying colors. First and foremost, let me remind you of how successful we were in combating and fighting during the COVID period. We were the envy of the nation and how we attacked that problem and how we spent the money that we received from the federal government. If you were here, you'll recall the cyber attack when the Russian mob hacked our computer system and demanded hundreds, not hundreds, but millions of dollars from us. I said no to the Russian mob to protect their money. Lastly, another example took 2020 elections. We've been under attack by the Trump administration for years, 6 years in particular. We've come through that election. We conducted 17 successful elections since 2020, but yet and still, President Trump continues to focus on Fulton County and to talk about the 2020 election, even if he had won Georgia and Fulton County, he still would not have been president. So these are difficult times in which we live, although we are a great county. These are the times that call for leadership, experienced leadership, capable leadership. It's not the loudest voice in the room. Competent leadership, tested leadership. That's what I'm.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go into our questions for the evening. For each question, you will have 2 minutes. Our first set of questions will be on governance and transparency. We will begin with Mr. Arrington. How are you ensuring transparency in county decision-making and budgeting?
Thank you for the question. I think I have been a diligent servant of transparency and governance in Fulton County. I first, by attending the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia, I learned about the model open records officer. And so I passed a resolution passed for an open records officer for Fulton County so that we have better transparency. What we had before was open records requests being sent to different departments. And each department would have to respond. And with an open records request, you have to respond within 3 days. And so there was no centralization of that process. And so what I did was bring a centralization of the open records request process to Fulton County. I also believe in transparency. I have newsletters that talk about the different things that we do. And also in specific regards to transparency with the budget, we make sure that we make that available for everyone to go through. And I also host town halls. So I typically host about 12 town halls per year to make sure that I have the information directly from the people. And so I typically do it around in multiple locations so that residents from East Point won't have to travel to the city of South Fulton, and residents from Chatman won't have to travel a fair way to go to meetings to make sure that we have the transparency and the openness that is required. And so I believe transparency and is the linchpin to trust in government. And so you have to have that trust in government, and it is through communication and transparency. So I'm proud of my record on transparency in government over the last 12 years.
Thank you so much. Ms. Ivory, how are you ensuring transparency in county decision-making and budgeting?
Thank you. Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for that question. I think transparency is of the utmost importance from the first day. Actually, since before the first day that I was sworn in, I've been educating and letting people know about how Fulton County operates. One of the things that a lot of citizens feel very much in the dark about is they just don't understand what our county offers to them. So it's hard to know what they should ask and know what they need when they don't really understand what it is that our county does. I've been going around the county asking the simple question, do you know even what the county does for you? And most people say no. So to address that, I immediately, from the first meeting I ever attended as a commissioner, gave live updates during our meetings to let people know exactly what we were talking about in the meetings and how it affected them, where their money was being spent. I did that every single meeting that I have ever attended as a commissioner. So I grew a big social media base because of that. And so I continue to let people know the information. Information when I go into the jail, I bring it to the people. Information when I was at the FBI raid, I bring it to the people. So several million views later, people are telling me that they now understand certain things about Fulton County that they did not before. So my focus is, especially in the area of transparency, is letting people know what we're actually doing and letting them know what their county offers. You can't go look on the Fulton County website if you don't know what you're looking for. So I use transparency as a way of communication and education so that people will understand what's going on, whether that is from the budget to issues that affect their health care, to issues about food shortages or food supply, and of course about our elections and what is going on in our crises areas, which include the jail and our courts. So I view information as the greatest source of transparency.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts.
Thank you, ma'am. The transparency, I think, begins at home. And by that, I mean, in my office, I have an open door policy to the chagrin of my staff. Anyone can walk in my office at any time and see me. The other thing about my office is that being chair is a full-time job. A lot of people don't understand that. It is a full-time job. Fulton County is made up of 1,250,000 people. It's 72 miles long. I'm from one end to the other. But in addition to being accessible and meeting with people wherever they are, I publish a newsletter called the Rob's Report. We have some 50,000 copies that we send out, dealing with issues that the board is dealing with issues that the federal government may be dealing with. And also I use our not local, but our in-house television station, FGTV, to talk to the people about topical issues. And lastly, as it relates to open records, it's my belief that when an open records request is received by the county from an outside source, it should be given immediately because we have nothing to hide. And I've said that from day one, and I'll continue to say it. We at Fulton County, within Fulton County, we have nothing to hide. It's an open, transparent government, and I've been proud of that.
Thank you so much. Our next question, also on governance and transparency, we're going to begin with Ms. Ivory. How do you incorporate community feedback into policy decisions?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Community feedback is so important to me. That's why I made it a point to have not only numerous town halls in different parts of my district, but I also hold community stakeholder meetings in my office. I also created a podcast where it's called Civics for the People, in which I put out episodes where I have sat with every head of every department at Fulton County so that citizens will understand where their services come from. So I think it's very important to include the community. Anytime that there's an issue, I make sure to meet with those community stakeholders to get their input because we at Fulton County don't do a great job of including everybody's voice at the table. So I try to make sure that I'm doing that at all times. I am very active in the community, and I not only have those meetings on a regular basis, including the town halls, including the podcast events, but I also then turn that information into a livable piece of writing that people can have. So if seniors need to have that information because they may not be on social media or they may not listen to podcasts, I make sure to put that in a form and get it to them so that they will have it. We have open door policy in my office. There are 3 lawyers who work on my staff, so we are constantly looking at the policy. We are looking at the code. We are examining the regulations to make sure that we are getting people actual facts as to how they can be a part of the process. So research, reading, and writing is fundamental in my office, and that is how I pass along the information that the community needs to know and have told me have not been getting for a long time.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts?
Thank you. The pastor made a very important statement in his opening remarks about listening. That's the first step. If you check our records, I probably talk less than anybody back, probably the whole board combined, because I'm listening. But in addition to that, I meet with people. I talk with elected officials at the city level, at the state level, the federal level, to find out what issues are and implement those and translate those into policies that will impact the citizens of Fulton County. For example, we don't have all of the knowledge in the world, the 7 of us who serve on this board of commissioners now. So it's important for us to be open and to listen to what other people are doing, to find out what they're doing, how they're doing what they're doing, and if it's appropriate and if it's applicable, to implement those policies for the benefit of the citizens here in Fulton County. In addition to that, having served as I have at the city level and at the county level, and having contacts, relationships at the federal level and the state level, other legislators contact me about ideas to get information and my thoughts from a historical perspective on what works and what does not work. That's how you implement public policy.
Thank you. Mr. Arrington?
Thank you. Thank you. I believe the question was, how do we take community input and implement it into policy? You know, we are here, I am here, I serve as a commissioner at the behest of the people or on the people's behalf. And so it is important that we take community input, or that I take community input into consideration when making any and every decision. I am here, commissioners are here to act on behalf of the community. So you have to take that into consideration. Again, the ways that I have received that community input is through hosting over 100+ town halls over the last 12 years. And so I received that input, taken into consideration, and then implemented to enact policy. We had people worried about arrest. So I went to Seattle, we implemented pre-arrest diversion, which is again a diversion program that gets people out of jail. We have veterans that were not receiving services in Fulton County. So I implemented that into a policy, the Veterans Empowerment Task Force, and got them $1 million a year. We have youth that don't have jobs or work during the summer. I implemented that into a policy by creating the Summer Youth Jobs Program, which has been in place for the last, well, it was in place for the last 10 years, because the last 2 years, the gang before cut the money for the veterans, cut the money for the Summer Youth Jobs Program, cut the money for arts, and cut the money for seniors. And so that's why I decided to run to be the next chairman of Fulton County, because we're going in the wrong direction. We need to invest more in our youth and our children on the front end. And that way we don't have to spend that much on putting them in jail or incarcerating them on the back end.
Thank you so much. Our next question will be on budget and taxes. We're going to begin with Mr. Pitts. Mr. Pitts, what are your top budget priorities for the next fiscal year?
Great question. My top budget priority is keeping your taxes as low as possible. And that means defeating any attempt by anyone to increase your millage rate, as was done this last year, as has been done in the past. What happens is here, you support good legislation, but you work to defeat bad legislation. And bad legislation from my perspective is any attempt to raise your millage rate. Now, going back probably 15 years, we set in place a plan that has worked. I authored that plan that will reduce our millage rate over the years, and it has decreased. In fact, over the past 6 or 7 years, our millage rate has remained constant, flat at 8.87 mils. Very proud of it. But in addition to keeping that millage rate flat, in the layman's term, that means not increasing your property taxes, even though there was an attempt to increase your property taxes by as much as 15%. We defeated that, but we're able to keep that millage rate flat and at the same time deliver the services that you pay for and that you deserve and that we are required by the Constitution of the state of Georgia to provide for you. Very proud of what we've been able to do with respect to keeping your taxes as low as possible, but yet not cutting your services.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington.
Thank you. I don't know if this one's working. Okay. Thank you for the question. I believe the question was, what would be my top budget priorities? My top budget priority is going to be aligning our fiscal year with our tax year. Currently, we are borrowing money because we don't wait. We have to finance operations until the money is collected by our tax commission. So my top budget priority, we're borrowing millions of dollars a year, right, in order to pay for operations in Fulton County. So my top budget priority is realigning our fiscal year with our collection year. That is the main thing that I think that we need to do that will immediately eliminate millions of dollars of loans that the people, the taxpayers of Fulton County are having to pay. That is important. And additionally, the millage rate is important, but what we really have to do is we have to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share and no more than their fair share. So we have to make sure that commercial properties are being fairly appraised, as well as residential properties are being fairly appraised. We have to make sure that those appraisal values are the correct, and again, that everyone is paying their fair share of taxes. So it's really about not just doing things the way they've been done, and having new, fresh ideas, new energy, and new vision as to how to lead, right? Just because the fiscal year has been this way forever doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Just because we've been borrowing money to finance the operations doesn't mean it has to stay that way. We can finance the operations after we collect the money. That is a smart, wise thing to do. And so those are my top budget priorities: aligning our fiscal year with our tax collection year, and making sure that we are fairly appraising all properties, commercial and residential, so that no one pays more than their fair share. As it relates to raising the millage rate, there's not necessarily a reason to raise the millage rate. The millage rate has come down. I went back and got the records. In 2000, the millage rate was 13.69. However, in 2014, when I came on, it was 11.781, and now it's down to 8.87.
Thank you. Ms. Ivory?
So. Okay, I think yeah, you, okay, all right, but, I don't know. Okay, so, no, doesn't work. Does this one work now? Hello? Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you, for your patience. My goal for the budget is, first of all, to figure out where the money is. We need to do a forensic audit of our budget. Our budget has been operated for more than 20 decades by sort of the same folks who have not done a forensic audit for a very long time. There's a lot of money that we just don't know what it's being used for. There are line items like other, there are lines that have a lot of money in them that we are not sure what the money is being used for. I've asked questions and I haven't necessarily gotten straight answers from them. So I did put forth a resolution recently to have a forensic audit done, and it was voted down by the gang of four. So what I will first do is figure out where all the money is and what it can be allocated to, where the waste is, and how we can fix that issue. Then I want to begin to hit some of the crisis areas that we have in Fulton County. I want to stop the deaths in our jail. And so I think we have to put the proper amount of money that needs to be allocated to actually fix the jail, which has not been done as of yet, despite the fact that we are in our third consent decree. So that's what I'm hoping to be able to do. One, a forensic audit of the budget so that we can figure out exactly how much money we have. And then second, I want to hit our crisis areas. The jail is one of our crisis areas, and the funding of the courts, which is the pipeline, getting the cases down, which feeds the overcrowding of the courts.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next question will be on infrastructure and development. What investments are being made in public transportation or alternative transit? Mr. Arrington, we're going to start with you.
Thank you for that question. Mobility is what we're really talking about. How we get people moving around, how do we keep people moving? Excited to say that we have been working with Atlanta Aerotropolis Alliance and the Georgia Aerotropolis Alliance to bring BRT to South Fulton Parkway and South Fulton. As you know, these capital projects are very capital heavy and capital intensive and require a lot of funding, and typically take about 5 to 10 years before they. But we have done, one of the things that I'm proud of is, and serving on the board of the Fort McPherson Local Redevelopment Authority. We sold the land to Tyler Perry. We have a plan for mobility. The great thing about the facility at Fort McPherson is it sits in between 2 MARTA stations. And so having mobility, making sure that there is access for all, right? There's a lot of traffic and congestion on the north side. We've also made a lot of investments along with the state to help ease the congestion on the north side, because that congestion from the north side leads to congestion on the south side. We also have to be mindful. We also have to be mindful that the congestion from the north side leads to congestion on the south side. And so we have to do everything that we can to make sure that people can get around, that they can get to work, get to their children, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. Ms. Ivory, what investments are being made in public transportation or alternative transit?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I don't mind passing this microphone around. I think it's very important for people to understand Fulton County's role, and obviously we have a role in discussions with MARTA and our participation in MARTA, but we don't have a full say-so strong enough at the MARTA table that we should have for our investment. So I do think, and we've discussed this in the past, that we need to have a stronger, more robust, more people seated at the table representing Fulton County on the MARTA board. And so MARTA has a lot of projects right in my district downtown. We have a whole entire new bus system going through Summerhill, Peoplestown, all the way to downtown, and that is wonderful, but it still will not relieve a lot of the main issue, which is traffic. So we have to continue to be in the conversation to identify those projects that will truly have an impact on traffic. I sit on the Beltline board, so I am able to hear a lot about the discussions on the Beltline, and there is still not transit on the Beltline. Something that had always been imagined in the original Beltline plan, that there would be transportation on the Beltline, and it has not happened. And so we have to look at those funds that are left in the Beltline tab, which is what would pay for that transportation, and see if that's even going to be something that can be contemplated before a renegotiation of that money comes up. So I think it's important to continue to have the voice at the table in these important meetings of stakeholders like the Beltline, stakeholders like MARTA, to make sure that we are looking out for the infrastructure that affects so many of Fulton County residents, and particularly on the south side where there is limited access to transportation.
And thank you so much, Ms. Ivory. We're going to pause for just a minute. I just want to say, do not hold the mics really close to you or too tight. I think they feel that. So if you could just loosen up a little bit, and we will be changing them out if necessary. Thank you. Mr. Pitts, yes. The question again. What investments are being made in public transportation or alternative transit?
Another great question, because if you can't get from point A to point B easily, we have a problem in spite of the growth that we're experiencing here in Fulton County. Specifically, in fact, tomorrow morning, I'll be convening a meeting of all the mayors, all 15 mayors in Fulton County, to talk about transportation and talk about what's called a T-Splosh. And that's where we use a penny of that sales tax for transportation purposes. It has earned us over billions of dollars over the past 5 years for transportation purposes, but it's now time to renew it. So they will all be coming to the county tomorrow morning to talk about renewing that. And I'm optimistic that everyone will agree to do it. Atlanta has its own. It's really talking about the other 14 cities. But from a futuristic point of view and from the future's point of view, I was involved in what's called a PRT, that's personal rapid transit. That is used in Europe quite a bit. And guess what? We have a pilot program that's going to open in College Park. MARTA contributed $10 million, the county contributed money to it. We have a contractor in place now, and that is going to provide transportation for you to get from point A to point B in cars that will be not cars, but like a train that will be self-driving. So that's the future. You're going to have people from all over the world coming to South Fulton County to review College Park in particular, to view and experience these PRTs and personal rapid transit. The other thing that I think is happening here is this, you've seen way more around. That is something that we as a region have been involved in, and that's also going to help us move people from point A to point B going forward. County is well aware of the need for transportation, again, because if you cannot get from point A to point B, no matter how successful you are, that's a problem.
Thank you so much. Our next set of questions will refer to housing and growth. Ms. Ivory, how is the county addressing affordable housing shortages?
Thank you for that question. I serve on the City of Atlanta Partners for Home Board, which is the housing affordability board in the City of Atlanta that encompasses most of my District 4. And I work hand in hand with the mayor on their output of units for affordable housing. And just this past year, when we approved the 2026 budget, we got into a glitch because we are in a 30-year agreement to provide $4.8 million of supportive housing services for homeless individuals that come into housing. And then we, the county, provide those services, except that budget was cut this year by $2.1 million. It took press conference out in the cold with the mayor, with the homeless advocates, in order to apply the pressure so that it was included back into our budget in a later meeting, which we adopted it back into our budget. So we need to do a better job of adhering to the agreements that we have long-term to provide permanent supportive housing to the City of Atlanta for homelessness support. I also put a resolution forward so that we could guarantee that that money would be there in 2027, and the Gang of Four on our district voted that no. So what we can do is keep our word. We can keep our word to our cities that we are going to adhere to the agreements that we sign, no matter if we have small print that allows us an out. We should never invoke that out because that out is important and the cities depend on us for that money. And certainly we shouldn't be thinking about an out on people who are homeless. So my vow is to continue adhering to the agreements that we've already signed to support homelessness.
Thank you so much. Mr. Pitts, how is the county addressing affordable housing shortages?
First and foremost, unlike the surrounding counties, our sister counties, 99.9% of the land within Fulton County is in one of the 15 cities. The only land that's available that the county has control over is that land that's right by our airport. And that's an important distinction to understand when we talk about affordable housing. So housing is built in cities. Cities now have zoning, they do the zoning. But from a housing point of view and an affordability point of view, we provide support services. Those services we provide to organizations that provide services to those who are in those homes. That's our role. Our primary role is not necessarily building of the houses, although I proposed a program. We have $1 million set aside for it, is still in place to build. You've seen this concept of tiny homes now, and that zoning laws are being changed nationwide, including within the city of Atlanta and some of the other 15 cities, whereby you will be allowed to build a smaller home if you have adequate land in your primary residence. So that's another way. That's something that the county is doing, but the primary responsibility, because of the way Fulton County is set up now as a result of the various incorporations, most of the land, 99.9% of the land is within other cities. That one area though that I talked about, if you look at Fulton Industrial, that's the FIB, we have required all of those hotels that were used for all kinds of activities there. We will be proposing a mixed use development there on that land. It's partially in the county, partially in the city of South Fulton.
Thank you. Mr. Arrington?
Thank you for that question. Dealing with homelessness is a very sensitive issue that we have to provide for those who are unhoused. I'm glad to say that I have been leading in this area. One of the things that I live by is that no one can help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And so what I do is I lead by example. I've hosted a homeless blanket and clothing drive for the last 14 years in Fulton County. Started 2 years prior to being elected, hosting that blanket and clothing drive for the unhoused and homeless. And that is something that I do, again, leading by example and helping the homeless. But that is just a drop in the bucket, right? So I led the effort on Fulton Industrial to buy the 5 hotels. We spent $30 million buying those 5 hotels in an attempt to, I'll say, stop sex trafficking, but really displace the sex trafficking is probably all that we did. But we did that in order to build. My goal when we bought those properties was to put affordable housing there, veterans housing, workforce housing. Those are the type of things that we need. We talk about the homelessness. All of these issues kind of intertwine. And so a lot of the homeless people, our unhoused community, which I believe is the proper term, a lot of our unhoused community are veterans. And so if we can provide veterans with housing and wraparound services, that is what we should be doing. And that is the exact reason that I led the effort to buy the 5 properties, the 5 hotels, the Old McDonald's, the Red Roof Inn, and the Knights Inn, all of those properties on Fulton Industrial, was to provide affordable housing, not only for veterans, but also for families. And so hopefully that is what we will be doing. We have not voted on doing anything with those properties yet.
Thank you so much. Our next question will be on public safety. What are your priorities for law enforcement? And we can include the jail in this question and other emergency services. Mr. Pitts, we're going to start with you.
The jail is a priority. And there have been a lot of discussions about what to do with the jail. From building a brand new $2 to $3 billion jail to repairing the current jail and building a medical facility on the same footprint. I never supported and still do not support spending $2 to $3 billion on a country club jail. If I'm going to spend $2 to $3 billion, I'm going to spend that money on a hospital in South Fulton County. Therefore, I did not support it and still do not support it. But the other thing about that is, if you build a new jail, a bigger jail that would house, the projection was some 4,000 beds. Who do you think is going to be in those beds? Black and brown people, people that look like us. They're alternative to that jail, to housing, building a bigger jail. And that is what I support. Renovating the Rice Street Jail and building this medical facility on the same footprint. Why medical facility? The medical facility is needed because approximately 70% of the detainees in our jail have either a mental issue or a substance abuse issue. The other thing about the jail is that we built a diversion center. It's not the jail, a diversion center, which will also seek to divert people from going to the jail in the first place. And I suggested a 5-point plan recently that would immediately reduce that population by up to 1,000 beds and inmates simply by implementing policies and procedures and programs that we already have in place and already paid for.
Thank you. Mr. Arrington, what are your priorities for law enforcement and emergency services, including the jail?
Thank you. My priorities for law enforcement are supporting our law enforcement and giving them the resources that they need in order to do the job that they need to do, and supporting the entire justice and public safety ecosystems, right? So that means the district attorney's office, the public defender, the clerk, the judges and their judicial staff. They have to have the proper resources. One of the biggest problems we have right now is DeKalb County, they pay double overtime to their sheriff's deputies. In Fulton County, you can only get comp time. So if you're working, where would you rather work? Would you rather go get double overtime, or would you rather get some comp time that you may or may not be able to cash in on? So we have to support our justice and public safety partners, but we also have to hold them accountable, right? We can't just write them blank checks. We have to make sure that the money, that they are being good stewards of the money that we allocate toward them. And so we have to support the justice and public safety partners. We have to hold them accountable and make sure that those funds are being used in a wise manner. But also at the same time, we've got to do some other things, right? We have one of the slowest ambulance response times in South Fulton. And so we've got to address the slow ambulance response time. I'm glad to have led the effort in the opening of the new hospital by declaring their healthcare state of emergency in Fulton County, specifically South Fulton, in 2022. But the one hospital is not enough. We need more than one hospital. So you combine slow ambulance response time with not having access to a hospital within 30 miles of South Fulton, and we have a much shorter life expectancy. Our life expectancy in South Fulton is 5 to 7 years lower, and we must do everything we can. Healthcare is not a privilege, it's a basic human right.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. Ms. Ivory.
My plan is to actually do something. So in 4 years from now, you're not sitting here having the conversation about the jail again. They had that conversation 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago, and 20 years ago. And still, there is no difference at the jail. So I actually want to do something. I don't think there's anybody up here that ever imagined building a country club jail. That just doesn't exist. We would just like to take the one that is there now and make it constitutional, make it humane, because right now there is a crisis of humanity at the jail. 80 people have died at the jail since 2009. LaShawn Thompson died of bed bug bites at the jail, and still nothing has been done at the jail. So it isn't a medical facility that is being built. It's a jail with a medical unit inside of it, something that the current jail does not have. But do not let the language fool you. There is a new jail being built that will have a medical facility. It's not bigger than the one that exists now, because nobody's goal is to incarcerate more Black people. So please look through these messages and get to the truth. And the truth is that when the jail was built, just like if you went to get a 2-bedroom apartment and moved 14 people into it, it would be in bad condition quickly. And that was the jail. So it needs to be torn down, and the medical facility inside of the new jail needs to accompany another jail on the same property so that people can live in humane conditions. And I plan to actually make that happen, since it hasn't happened yet.
Thank you so much. I have here a series of questions in which I want you to listen carefully. You will still have the same 2 minutes, and you can respond to any part of the question that you wish. Again, this is jail related. The county controls the jail budget, but the sheriff controls daily operations. So if conditions remain unconstitutional today, is that a failure of your funding decisions or the sheriff's management? If staffing shortages are the primary driver of unsafe conditions, is it your position that the board has failed to fund adequate staffing, or that the sheriff has failed to recruit and retain personnel? The Board of Commissioners voted to remove control of the Inmate Welfare Fund from the sheriff, citing concerns about oversight. What specific findings justified that action, and were those findings referred to any state investigative authority? The consent decree places legal responsibility on both the county and the sheriff. So if Fulton County fails to achieve compliance, who should the public hold accountable? This board or the sheriff? If the board fully funded every request from the sheriff tomorrow, do you believe jail conditions would materially improve within 90 days? That's yes or no. At this moment, are the conditions inside the Fulton County Jail more a reflection of decisions made by this board or leadership exercised by the sheriff? In light of court rulings raising the possibility of attorney fee liability, this is a different question, so I'm going to pause here because it goes into something different. And I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. Here we're going to start with Mr. Arrington, and we're going to ask, and this comes from a concerned citizen, and so I wanted to give them the opportunity to know that we are concerned about their questions. So I'm going to ask that you respond to any part of it that you wish.
All right, I'll try to do my best. That was a lot. But here's what I would say. We have a lot of different issues to deal with at the jail. I think the biggest problem that we have to deal with at the jail is hiring and retention of officers. I just spoke recently about the difference between getting double overtime in DeKalb County and other surrounding counties versus getting comp time in Fulton County. So I think that's one area where we as a board need to change our policy to allow it to be competitive with surrounding counties, right? I think our sheriff does a decent job and as good a job as he can, but hiring and retention is not only a problem in our jail and in our sheriff's office, it's a problem that we have all throughout Fulton County, hiring and retention. Additionally, our president is offering ICE agents $150,000 plus a $50,000 signing bonus. So that's another issue. It's hard to hire good, quality, competent people, but it's also hard to retain those people. And so we have to have other services that we offer to them, like daycare, right? For the people working at the jail. That's one of the things that I just passed and got the board to pass is daycare for those officers. People learned out after COVID how to survive without having to do a lot of work and go to places, right? Our jail is not safe. It is not a place where people really want to go work, right? I don't think any jail is a place where a lot of people really want to go work. And so we need I'm going to believe that we do need a new facility. The cost of the new jail was $1.6 billion. And the cost that they're talking about that they approved, the Gang of Four approved for the new mental health facility and for refurbishing the jail was $1.3 billion. So that's only a $0.3 billion difference, which is big to us, but in the scheme of things, for a safe jail, it's not.
Thank you. Ms. Ivory?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's important to let people understand that this is not the first consent decree, meaning that this is not the first time that there was an investigation by the federal government, the Department of Justice, and they said that the conditions inside of the Fulton County Jail were abhorrent or that the staffing levels were not adequate. This is the third time. So this passes through many sheriffs. So even if you want to say, well, the sheriff operates the jail, there's been many sheriffs that have operated the jail. So there is not just one sheriff that has come under the scrutiny of a consent decree. So the monitor's report for the consent decree mentioned many areas, gave guidance on things that the sheriff could do differently as the operator of the jail, and gave comments on what the county needed to do for the crisis of funding. And we must do that. And currently we're not. So first, we need to do the things that we're responsible for. And what we're responsible for is the funding. Before we have the conversation of, well, what will the sheriff at any particular time do with our funding? We haven't given the adequate amount of funding to fix the problem that the monitor has pointed out as the biggest crisis area, which is staffing. And so if you cannot get people to come work at a jail because of the conditions of the jail, then that is just another thing that makes it harder to get people to want to work there, to stay there, and then to do their jobs in a well-mannered way. So we have a responsibility, and we should be focusing on our responsibility, which is the funding, and let the sheriff worry about the operating.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts?
Thank you very much. Nationwide, FBI, CIA, ICE, you name, State Patrol, GBI, they all have a staffing problem. There's a shortage of people who want to work in public safety these days. Let's start with that. But we've implemented changes in terms of ways to attract more people that will want to work in our. In fact, right now, as we sit here this evening, the starting salaries for a detention worker in our jail will be the highest in the state of Georgia. But we're still having trouble attracting people. Now, the gold standard for detention workers is in Franklin County. That's in Columbus, Ohio. they pay $100,000 a year beginning salaries. But it's not just the salary. When they've been surveyed, they talk about the management and the trust in the management of that jail, which is why they've been able to attract people there. The second thing that was mentioned in your question was the inmate welfare fund. I was involved in that because there was a pot of money, 11, 12, 15, at one point, probably $18 million. But it was paying for, the purpose of that fund was to provide services, things that would benefit the inmates, the detainees. But when I looked at it, it was being used to pay for things that I thought the county should be paying for. And that's why we dismantled that inmate fund. For example, why would you use the inmate welfare fund to pay for uniforms? That's the county's responsibility. Why would you use to pay for equipment in the kitchen? That's the county's responsibility. So we reverse that now. That is being provided by the county, and those other items are being.
Thank you. Our next questions will be on health and social services. Ms. Ivory, we're going to begin with you. How is the county supporting mental health and addiction services?
Yeah, thank you for that question. In my district, we have the very first C.E.E.L Behavioral Crisis Center, and that center was opened up right around the time that I first became a commissioner. And that is a crisis center that is open 24 hours a day for those that are suffering from a mental health crisis. So that is a center that people should utilize more because it is underutilized. The county does well in this area by providing a lot of mental health services, but citizens don't take as much advantage of it as they could. And so it is our job then to get the word out about those services that are available. We also are in something that I feel very proud of that is also underutilized, that I rang the bell about very early on in 2025, was that our diversion services, which deal with a lot of people with mental health issues, people who have alcohol abuse problems, people who are out on the street and have substance abuse problems and do not need to come in contact with incarceration because of those problems, our diversion services are there. And they were being deeply underutilized. So if we begin to get the word out about all of the services that are being offered in the area of mental health and disabilities, as well as prevention and things like alcohol treatment by the diversion services, people would have a better understanding of all the services that are available to them. So I try to make sure that I am exposing constituents to all of those services that are available, whether it's even something like therapy services, which are very much available, to prevention services and diversion services, which are also available and underutilized. So I would hope that we could spend more time getting the message out to constituents that these services are available for them and increase their usage of the services they're paying for.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Arrington.
Thank you. I'm excited to hear that answer. I actually was responsible for bringing the behavioral health system to the Oak Hill facility. That was my district from 2015 to 2022 until the Republicans redrew the lines. And so I worked very closely with at Oak Hill from 2015 to 2022 and making sure that they were providing health and human services. They do a great job in that area. Additionally, I created a pilot program called Geological Agriculture, or partnered with a partner for geological agriculture to address the food desert problem in that area. When you talk about health and human services, the first thing we have to talk about is nutrition and how we help people eat healthy so that they can stay out of the hospital and not needing services, right? And so the first thing you have to talk about is nutrition and eating and quality food. And then you have to talk about access to medical doctors, to providers, OBGYN, and all of those things. And so I'm happy to have led the way again by declaring a healthcare state of emergency in Fulton County, and particularly in South Fulton, And now we have Grady Hospital has built a freestanding emergency room. They have building officers, an office building for doctors and specialists so that we can have more of those on the south side. And the third phase of that, and we just agreed to tentatively commit to $300 million for the creation of a full-fledged hospital. But I want to go back to that inmate welfare fund right quick in my last 18 seconds, because the former chair was part of that inmate welfare fund. There were 3 people that were on the board making the decisions on how that money was going to be spent. It was the sheriff, the chair, and another person designated by the sheriff. But the chair didn't even know that he was supposed to be on the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts.
We take mental health very seriously in Fulton County. In fact, we are a leader, and the C.E.E.L has been mentioned quite a bit. That is a first-class facility, still underutilized though, but we have very competent, capable people there working, and we are promoting it. But let me tell you how serious we are. Fulton County, your Fulton County, we spend more on mental health than Cobb, DeKalb, Clayton combined. Did you hear what I said? Fulton County spends more on mental health. In fact, I think it may be 6 times more than those counties that I mentioned combined. So we take it seriously. Now, the state obviously has a role in that, which they have not fulfilled. But speaking of the state, I have to give credit where credit is due, in that we were able to get this C.E.E.L facility because of the representative, the Speaker Pro Tem, really felt very strongly about it and helped us get that facility. In fact, we will have a second mental health facility in Fulton County. We're working on that one right now behind the scenes. It's not become public. As you've heard me say once before, you get too many cooks in the kitchen, you spoil the broth. But we're working on it now. The diversion center has come up again. Great facility, run by, it's a partnership between the city of Atlanta and Fulton County, run by Grady, but it's underutilized. I've been working with the 15 police chiefs plus others to teach them, instruct them that that facility is there. And if it were utilized, that would help also, because again, about 70+% of the folk in our Rice Street jail have either a mental problem or a substance abuse problem, and that could be stopped if they were to go to that diversion.
Mr. Pitts, go ahead and keep that mic. This next question is, we're going to start with you. How does the county support local schools and workforce development?
Well, you have 2 school systems. We've got a huge private school system network here in Fulton County as well. Atlanta Public Schools and Fulton County Schools. They have their own budget, their own taxes. But what we do at the county is we again provide services. And back to mental health again. We provide millions of dollars to 2 organizations that provide mental health services in our for students in our 2 public school systems. We also help with recreation. We have programs that help our 2 school systems, and I'm really pleased at what we're doing in that area. But again, the school systems have the primary responsibility for that, and not the county. Ours is more of a secondary role. But again, we understand that the youth are the future in this county, and we certainly could work with our public school system.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory.
Thank you so much. I'd like to just say one thing about something that has now been mentioned in 2 debates about the cooks in the kitchen. There are 7 commissioners on the Fulton County Commission. Each of those cooks was elected by the people and should have a say-so in what is happening, whether that is before something is passed or even after it is passed. So I take big issue with the comment that there are too many cooks in the kitchen, because that is the way that we have been operating, where certain cooks have been left out of the conversation completely. I'm one of them. So I do not, there's a very old school status quo comment to say that there are too many cooks in the kitchen. I was elected by the people in my district, and I expect to be a part of the conversation. And I haven't been, and that is one of the reasons why I'm running for chair of this commission. Because this commission should not be a gang of four, but should be a body of seven that all get an opinion at the table as to what has been going on. And that has not been happening. And that is why I take issue with that comment. It is really important for us to play a role in what happens in the school systems because our children are the pipeline to the future. I am a professor, I am an educator, and so I take dealing with education very seriously. So I make it a part of my service to go to the schools, to be there working with the kids, passing along the information, working with our youth commission. My daughter was a youth commission in Fulton County Youth Commission when she was 17 years old. I've been watching the activities around youth in Fulton County for a very long time. I plan to strengthen that greatly by becoming a mentor to all of the students that come through Fulton County, as I have done for students at Spelman College, for students at Georgia State Law School, and for students all across this county. I will strengthen the education pipeline in Fulton County so that people will actually want to come work at Fulton County, stay at Fulton County, and build their careers, because I want many cooks in the kitchen.
Mr. Arrington.
Thank you. Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, how does the county support local schools and workforce development?
Thank you. So the county has supported local schools in the past through various methods. And I remember a couple of years where we actually gave $1 million to Atlanta Public Schools and $1 million to Fulton County Schools. We also do support through counseling services that are offered that the county pays for, that the both public school systems are able to take advantage of. But here's what happens when you call your government, when there's a problem, you don't care whether it's the county's responsibility or the school department's responsibility or the city. You just want to know that something's getting done. And so what I have done is lead by example by working with our children and hosting Black History Month film festivals every year and scholarship competitions, essay competitions and film competitions, by also hosting a summer writing workshop for our youth every year to make sure that they are engaged during the summer and staying out of trouble, but also having the opportunity to practice writing and to practice their public speaking. Additionally, I also host an annual Back to School It Takes a Village college essay scholarship competition where I give away 10 $500 scholarships to college students from Fulton County. So, and then I guess finally, as far as workforce development, I host an annual teen hiring fair. I've hosted numerous hiring fairs, but I've also hosted access to capital fairs because a lot of people, there's some people that are looking for jobs, there's some people that are looking for access to capital. And so while no one can help everyone and everyone can help someone, and while the government, Fulton County government, the schools may not necessarily be our responsibility, we as commissioners can lead by example in our own private lives.
Thank you so much. Mr. Arrington, you can hold on to that mic. The next question, we're going to begin with you. What cybersecurity measures are in place to protect county data?
Thank you. That's a great question. If I tell you the answer to that question, no, seriously, we had a huge cybersecurity attack a few years ago, and we had to take a lot of steps to make sure that we do not have that problem again, right? Our courts were shut down, our daily operations, our tax records, everything was shut down because of someone with bad intentions hacked into our system. The problem that we had was most of our stuff was being hosted on local servers in Fulton County. And so we have moved to alternate-based servers, web-based servers that provide more security than the county can keep up with on its own. And so we have a great, or I won't say great, we have a good cybersecurity plan in place we learned from the mistakes from before, and we implemented a plan to address those going forward. And I think as leaders, that's what you have to do, right? You have to see where the gaps are and fill those gaps. And so I think we have filled those gaps. We have a good cybersecurity plan. The details of that plan are not something that can be discussed. We usually discuss cybersecurity in executive session. But yes, we do have a good cybersecurity plan. We need to have more robust involvement and more use of technology and innovation in everything that we do. The county is 20, 40 years behind, and there are a lot of people that do things the same way they've been doing it just because that's the way that it's been done. And that's why it's important to pass the baton to the next generation of leaders who have new ideas, fresh vision, fresh energy in order to get things done. Anyone can tell you what they're going to do. I'm proud to stand on my record of the things that I have done and accomplished in the last 12 years.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts.
Well, I would agree that, and I mentioned this earlier in my opening statements about the cyber attack. That was not just some kids playing on their computers in their basements. What we found in working with Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, and others, I was in meetings with those people on a daily basis. And what we learned was that it was the Russian mafia that hacked us. Serious Russian mafia with a corporate structure, the best in the world. They even approached me in one of those meetings about paying a ransom, millions of dollars. But I said, no, we will not pay a ransom. Now, what we have done, though, since that time, we have taken made significant changes, which I can't discuss here and will not discuss, but we've made significant changes to protect our assets going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory.
Millions and millions of dollars of our budget are put towards cybersecurity measures and towards our technology department. So even though there are still huge gaps and huge technology updates that would make our processes more efficient. And particularly, I'm talking about the court efficiencies for the systems that we use for case management and for all of the papers that have not been transferred from hard copy to the digitizing of files and things like that. So we are very behind in Fulton County when it comes to our court records. There are rooms that have, I was surprised to see rooms that have boxes and boxes and boxes of documents that are there. Even at the jail, there are boxes of documents, and when there is a flood, those documents will get wet and they have not been digitized. So we really do need to pay some attention to updating the way that we are dealing with technology. As a former technology lawyer, I think that is part of a negotiation that can happen concerning our full servicing of our technology needs. So correct that we cannot discuss cyber security, but we can discuss the upgrades of technology that would make our systems work more efficiently. And I'm very much looking forward, when becoming the chair, to look at those legal agreements to see what types of deals we are in where we are not maximizing our negotiation power for a lot of these contracts that are servicing our technology needs. There has to be a step towards updating our systems to come into a more technologically efficient manner of our court documents so that cases can move faster.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory. And this question, we're going to begin with you also. The question is, how do you ensure all communities are represented equally?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you for that. By having folks understand how the budget operates and understanding the inequities that have for so long plagued the way that we allocate dollars between the north and the south side. The north side obviously is very developed, has 5 hospitals, has the things that they need in order to live the type of life that we would all want to have. A life filled with robust supermarkets, robust opportunities for economic development, and places that transportation is moving and things are well. We need that on the South Side, and that means that the South Side has to be a part of the conversation. And so we must concentrate budget dollars towards the South Side. So in 4 years from now, you're not again sitting here saying, when are we going to get something? Why are all the data centers coming to the South Side? Why don't we have the healthcare that we need or the businesses that we need? But you continue to see the same types of businesses. Why don't we have the health? Why do we continue to have healthcare deserts? The inequities between living on North Fulton and South Fulton is about a 7-year life expectancy difference. And that should be unacceptable year after year after year. So the way we get everybody at the table is we educate everybody about the inequities. We give people the tools that they need to be able to fight for their neighborhoods, make them aware of things that are happening before the vote takes place, not after the vote has taken place, and they are looking at the things as they drive by. Well, what is that in my neighborhood? I didn't even know about that. I plan to educate so everybody has a seat at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Sure. The question is, how do you ensure all communities are represented equally?
So since I came on the commission in 2015, I had fought for equity, right? There's a difference between equality and equity, and equity sometimes means compensating or overcompensating for the lack of equality that may have existed. So what does that look like? That looks like South Fulton being at the table and making sure that South Fulton has everything that North Fulton has, and making sure that North Fulton has everything that South Fulton has. And so I've been a strong advocate for equity throughout the county. I am happy to vote for supporting anything in Atlanta and North Fulton and in South Fulton, as long as we are making sure that we are being equitable when we distribute our resources. And so equity looks like the new hospital in South Fulton, the new standalone emergency room. It looks like the phase 2 at the new hospital of doctor's offices with experts for OBGYNs, for neurology, orthopedic surgeons. We need access to that healthcare. And healthcare is one of the, obviously, the biggest issues where there is a big equity gap in the county. But we have to make sure that we do everything that we can to be equitable, because our tax dollars come from everywhere. Our tax dollars come from North Fulton. Our tax dollars come from Atlanta. Our tax dollars come from South Fulton. And so we have to be equitable in the representation and how we use those dollars throughout all 15 cities, throughout all Fulton counties, because the only way that we can move Fulton forward is as one Fulton. If everyone is retreating to South Fulton and North Fulton and Atlanta, then we're already going in the wrong direction. The way to move Fulton forward is as one Fulton.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pitts.
Thank you very much. Fulton County is a very, very diverse county, and that's something I'm very, very proud of. I represent the county at large as chairman. All 72 miles, all 1,250,000 residents. But it's a fact, North Fulton is pretty much developed. The city of Atlanta, pretty much developed. It's South Fulton, though, that needs the help, which has been and continues to be my focus going forward. And what's the biggest economic generator that we have here on the South Side and South Fulton in particular? It's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. That's what the businesses that are moving here were looking for, because you can go from Hartsfield-Jackson to 75% of this country within 2 hours. The other thing about South Fulton County is that there's still available land that is relatively inexpensive compared to land within Atlanta and on the north side. That's why the future of Fulton County is South Fulton County. So what has happened in the past is being addressed now. And I want to talk about some of the things that I'm working on now that will ensure that South Fulton County, city of South Fulton, I think that was the second or third largest city within the state of Georgia. But the growth for the future from an economic development point of view is South Fulton County.
Thank you so much. Our last question for tonight concerns election security. We're going to begin tonight with you, Ms. Ivory. The question is, what objective criteria or protocols does Fulton County use to distinguish legitimate election security concerns from politically driven claims?
That's such a good question. First, I want to say that Fulton County elections are safe. Fulton County elections are fair, and Fulton County elections are open and transparent. And everything that you've heard about Fulton County elections not being that is political. So we are doing the job. And what you saw when the raid happened was a political ploy to make you believe that we are not. So there's a real distinction between what is actually happening and what they are trying to make you believe is happening. So that raid was about Trump's obsession with the 2020 election loss. And that obsession translating into what will happen in this election. It was meant to make you believe that Fulton County could not do fair elections. There's really not much more that Fulton County needs to do to operate good elections. Make sure its employees are safe is what we want to do because there's so much of a threat coming at us at all times. When that raid happened, I went down to the raid. I made sure that I had my phone with me and I let all of you inside to see what was happening. 1.7 million views later gave so many Fulton County residents the faith that everything is being done right at Fulton County elections. That entire raid is made up by our president who has an obsession with losing. So I want you to know already that Fulton County elections are safe. We're gonna have a wonderful election in 2026. But the political attacks will not stop. They will keep coming. And that's what we have to be prepared for. That's what we have to be legally ready for. And that's what we have to keep on fighting.
Mr. Pitts.
January 28th is the night that the FBI raided our elections hub and confiscated, took whatever word you want to use, those boxes of material that related to the 2020 election. But I knew that it was bigger than that when I heard that Tulsi Gabbard was there, and I was there all night long. When I knew that she was there, this is much bigger than just the FBI raiding our warehouse. And what I concluded right then was that, and a few days later, the president started talking about nationalizing elections. What does that mean? It means taking over, having the federal government take over elections. And you would have to be blind not to understand, or something else, that the president and the White House don't control elections. States control elections. And so when he made that decision, gave her directions to come here, that's when we went to work. We filed a lawsuit asking two things: that the affidavit that was used to secure the search warrant be opened, that was granted. What has not been granted yet is the return of the documents, but you'll be hearing more about that in the next few days. But this is all about nationalizing elections. And Fulton County, Georgia will be the target of Washington and the president once again. In 2026, in 2028. So that's what this was all about, and that's what it's still all about. And if they're able to break us, to beat us here in Fulton County, and I can assure you that that's not going to happen as long as I'm here. But if they are able to break us, it's going to spread. I've been in conversations with my colleagues in Philadelphia and Chicago to be on the alert. So we talk pretty much on a daily basis. So we compare notes about how we're prepared here and what they should be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington.
So election integrity is very important. What we saw is an attack on the sacred trust between the voters and the election process, right? What we saw is an attack on, so what they're trying to do is create voter apathy, right? What this administration wants to do is to make people say, you know what? I don't even need to vote anyway because my vote doesn't even matter. I think we're going to see pushback on that. I think we're going to see the exact opposite. I think people are going to stand up and make sure that their voices are heard and that their votes count. The trust again between the voter and the voting process is very delicate, very fragile, and that is what they are attacking. And so we have to be vigilant, we have to stand up, and we have to push back. We also have to know the difference between a lawsuit and a motion. We have to have a chair that knows that we filed a Rule 41G motion, not a lawsuit. When you file a lawsuit, you have to then go get someone served and use a process server. This is a criminal action, and we filed a Rule 41G motion inside of that criminal action asking for the return. That's why it's important to have someone that has some legalese and that is a lawyer and has been a practicing attorney for the last 30 years. Someone that knows how to stand up and fight for our rights and fight to get our ballots back. We have to have someone that actually uses computers and emails. We need a chair that actually uses text messaging, right? My dad was the same way, right? You could text him if you wanted to, he would never see it, right? We need someone that is in charge of Fulton County, a chairman that understands technology so that we can use that technology to make sure that our voting is safe. And
thank you, Mr. Arrington. We have concluded the time allocated for questions for this forum. At this time, we will allow 1 minute for closing statements from our candidates, beginning with Mr. Arrington.
thank you. My name is Marvin Arrington Jr. I am the most qualified person to be the next chairman of the Fulton County Commission. I'm the only certified county commissioner certified by the University of Georgia and the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. I'm the only practicing attorney. Half of our $1 billion a year budget goes to the justice and public safety system. And so the fact that I've been a practicing attorney for the past 30 years makes me the most qualified to deal with our justice and public safety, which is our largest priority based on how we spend our money. I am the commissioner. You know, the hardest part of this job is showing up every day. You have to show up and go to work every day. You can't quit on your constituents. You can't bow out after a year. You can't do things that you have to show up every day and do the work. And I've been showing up every day and doing the work for the last 12 years. And I'm proud to stand on my record and move Fulton County forward.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful debate tonight. When a house is on fire, you do not waste time asking how long somebody's lived on the block. You pick up the water hose and you put the fire out. When there's a crisis of humanity in our jail and commissioners have been sitting on the commission for 12 years, 20 years, however long, and it's still the same, you need a broom to clean the house. You need to bring in somebody who will finally make a change. And I am prepared to do that. The idea that I do not have enough experience is just silly in itself. as an attorney myself, as a law professor, as an entrepreneur, and someone who came in and only after 60 days could see that the house was on fire. And I will not sit by and not pick up a water hose. I'm the only one here that has anything to lose. I put it all on the table by stepping down and coming here to step up and bring you a new Fulton County.
Thank you. Mr. Pitts.
Thank y'all for being here this evening. Thank you for having us. I'll close by reminding you that we're at war here in Fulton County. We're at war with the Trump administration. That is evidenced by that FBI raid on January 28th. This is the time, not for the loudest voice in the room, not for yelling and screaming, but I believe, and I think that you agree, that this is the time for calm, capable, steady, experienced, and tested leadership who will represent you in a dignified manner. This is not the time, under these circumstances, with this president, for on-the-job training.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts. And I want to say thanks to all of you, to all of our candidates for participating in tonight's forum. We thank you. And to our audience, both in person and online. We thank you for your time, attention, and engagement. We appreciate the thoughtful discussion and the opportunity to hear directly from those seeking to serve our community. Forums like this are an important part of the democratic process, helping voters make informed decisions. As we conclude, we encourage every one of you, to stay informed, remain engaged, and most importantly, make your voice heard by voting in the primary election on May 19, 2026, with early voting beginning April 27 through May 15. Thank you again for joining us. And at this time, we turn it over to Ms. Damita Chatman.
I want to thank my guests. I want to thank Mr. Rob Pitts. You know, my knees got a little still sitting there. I want to thank Mo Ivory. I want to thank Marvin Aaron. Stop laughing, Marvin, because when you, those folks say when you live a little longer, you understand. Let me say this. I want to thank the constituents for coming here. And most of all, you didn't have to obey my rules. I want to thank you because this election is very important. I don't care if Pitts get in the seat. I don't care if Ivory get in the seat or Arrington get in the seat. Whoever get in that seat, we got to support you guys. And so when I do this, I don't come out to play games because it's serious. And you just don't know how great it feels, because I was up last night after I got off work this morning, and I have not been asleep because I was trying to figure out how this song was going to go. I want to thank you. But most of all, I want to thank the constituents. Know who's on the ballot. Know before you go to the ballot. And know who you're going to represent. This is nothing against the candidates. What I say is, this is not a friendship. This is not who you went to kindergarten with. This is not who you went to church with, or who you might see at the party. But this is serious business. Not only on the local level, but on the federal level. I'm not worried about the federal. I'm just worried about the local politics. So again, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the man of this house. I want to thank the moderator. You did an outstanding job. I've been getting feedback. You did an outstanding job. And I'm always going to thank the man of my house. I'm gonna do that. I wanna thank him for doing what he did today, even when he told me to go to sleep and I still couldn't sleep. I wanna thank him. I wanna say, continue on watching. We got a long road to November, but we got to get through the primaries. And what I will tell you guys this, is 3 people in this race. Where one of them get 50 plus 1, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think so. Whoever make it to the runoff, then the form, this was a form, but C.E.E.L will be putting on the debate. So again, I wanna thank you guys for coming. I'm gonna take some pictures with you guys, okay? And we gonna love on each other, and this ain't an endorsement, but you can share all them pretty pictures. Thank you, come on up. Thank you, guys.